Welcome to the Dave Palma Show, the podcast that revives, restores, and awakens your innermost capabilities.
You have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail?
I love what I do. When you love what you do, you want to be the best at it.
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
Find your path to success through the journey of those who have succeeded. And now, your host, Dave Palma.
Hi, welcome back to the Dave Palma Show. And with me in this episode, I have a fellow podcaster who focuses on interviewing people about how struggle shapes our lives for the better. He'll be sharing his story on grief, loss, and how it has shaped his perspective on living a life worth living and building your dream life. Danny Goldberg, welcome to the Dave Palma Show.
Thanks so much for having me, Dave. Appreciate it.
Honor to have you here as well. And they're pretty much almost, not identical, but, we have the same kind of thing going on with our podcast. And I've been through some ups and downs. I've written a book and everything else, I did a great job of being a London firefighter, for most of my professional career. So I had some things to share, both from my private life and what I experienced, hence the book. So, I'm sure you've got some stuff to tell because we're all humans and we all have things we have to deal with, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And love how you've taken your experiences and putting out some positive in the world, putting out good vibes.
Yeah. So let's hear about yours and your story. So are you actually, I know you said off air that you're in Manhattan. Is that where you're from originally?
I grew up in Long Island, so 45 minutes from Manhattan. Haven't made it too far from home.
yeah. I've got an uncle that works in Long Island. A majority of family in Brooklyn, so I used to go to New York quite a lot and spent a lot of time in Manhattan actually because I'm a city boy.
Got it.
Even in London,
Where now you're in London?
Oh yeah. Well, I've always been in London. I just travelled out there, like for long vacations.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So So basically, is that where you grew up in Long Island? Is it?
Yeah. Grew up there. Went to school upstate, and then after college, moved to Manhattan. So really have not made it so far from home.
Yeah. Well, so Long Island's a nice place actually. It's actually they've got some beaches there, haven't they? Compared to there's beaches in. I think when I stayed in Brooklyn, there was one called Coney Island. Yeah,
so Coney Island's a cool spot. I actually grew up in a small town called Long Beach.
Long Beach, I heard of that. Yeah.
And a lot of people mistake that for Long Beach, California. But Long Beach, Long Island, it's a small little beach town. I grew up a couple of blocks from the beach, so I like to say the sand stuck in my toes. I don't think I'm making in my shoes. I'll probably end up moving back to where I grew up. I loved it there. Love it there. It's awesome during the summertime or the nicer weather, and we're like 45 minutes outside of Manhattan.
Oh, you're 45 minutes from Manhattan?
Where I grew up in Long Beach.
Long Beaches.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not long to get to the beach then from Manhattan, is it? 45 minutes?
And it's quiet too, so you don't get like all the chaos maybe that you would get at like a bigger beach or that you see when you go.
Yeah, I like that. If you need some peaceful moments and meditation, to meditate and things like that, it's a good place to have then, isn't it, really?
100%. I recommend it for anyone who visits during the summer. It's an awesome
better than the Hudson River.
That's for sure.
So tell us then, so what was life like growing up and then, before we go into the ups and downs, take us on your journey of life.
Yeah, so I really grew up in a I remember, I'm fast forwarding here quite a bit, but after my dad had passed away, I lost my dad when a couple months before my 21st birthday. And after he had passed, I remember vividly telling my mom, growing up, I really only knew happiness. Like I really did not know
grief or sadness.
Grief, sadness, or even just like that hard things, that hard things are happening. I mean, I was a kid. I was 20 years old when my dad was diagnosed with cancer, but that bad things happen in the world. But I personally really was not too familiar with like difficulty. I grew up in such a happy house. My parents had a very loving marriage and really supported me with love, care, comfort, and just wanted what was best for me from like the earliest days. And I mean, really, I think that's my parents' wishes after they had both passed. Just wanted me to be happy and be a good person and live an awesome life. And that's really how I grew up. And that was really like my life from as young as I can remember. Even now. But I would say like I had a pretty unique situation growing up. When I was 14 years old, when I was 11 years old, I stumbled into a small boxing gym in Long Beach, and instantly fell in love with the sport. And from 11 to 14, like every day I was in the boxing gym. And when I was 14 years old, I told my dad, my dad was an industrial designer. And I told him I want to be like you and design things. My dad really loved what he did. And I said, I want to have as much like love and passion for what I do, just like as you do. And he really shaped me and pushed me to pursue the things that made me come alive, pursue the things that made me happy. And when I was 14 years old, I started my first business. At the time, it was called Golden Gear. And we started importing boxing equipment from Thailand and selling it here in the States. And that was my first taste at entrepreneurship. But I would say even more so, I had this unique situation where at 14 years old, I was building something from scratch, and it was something that I deeply cared about, that I deeply enjoyed. And then really from like 14 to 20, that was my obsession. That was the thing that got me out of bed in the morning, that kept me up late at night. And through that business, my dad really supported me and pushed me to pursue the things that I loved. And through that, I traveled to Thailand with my dad. We went to visit the factory that made our equipment. We went to Boston, Vegas, California to go to all these boxing gyms, these boxing expos to sell the equipment. So I would say I had like a pretty unique childhood in that sense, where I was almost.
What's your most successful equipments that you sold from there?
We sold a lot of boxing gloves. So the business originally was we were just importing product and selling it to boxing gyms and things like that. And then it morphed into our own line. And I ran the business from 2009 till 2015. And at 2015, I sold it to our largest customer. And they pivoted, and the business is no longer around today. But I would say, it definitely made like my late middle school and high school years really, really interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, that's quite a good entrepreneurship at such an early, days of your, most people say I'm an entrepreneur. I used to sell newspapers, for the local whatever, but that's not quite, what it is really, but I suppose it's doing business, whether you're making only a few cents or pennies, or big bucks like, your company sounded more serious if you got, supplies in Thailand and stuff like that,
Yeah, I learned a lot in the experience, but it really, I would say like more than anything, when I look back on that and how that experience shaped how I live my life today, it really made me realize that you can be happy and like can really enjoy what you do for your professional work.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the kind of good note that you was set off in life. Until how old was you when you sold the business?
20. So after my dad passed, so my dad passed when I was 20 years old, and at that point, I was really ready for a change in my life, and I was still running that business. So I was about 21 years old.
Yeah,
when I sold the business.
21.
Yeah.
When you started the business?
I started the business when I was 14.
Oh, when you sold the business, sorry, yeah.
21 when I sold the business.
So did that sort of have a kind of effect on your decision, the passing of your dad and that, and you wanted to sell it, or?
Yeah, because he passed, and
He was an inspiration and support for that business for you, yeah?
yeah, and I would say I was just ready for whatever was next. Like there was definitely not as much. I unfortunately after that did not have as much energy or like passion for wanting to wake up and build it.
Yeah, I'm with you now, yeah. So the enthusiasm went kind of thing, motivation for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right. Well, so basically, time to move on. You're saying, and just do something different, and
yeah. So that's when I went into like a more exploratory phase of my life, of trying a bunch of different things and seeing what I liked, didn't like, etc. But really, my yeah, but much of like the going back to your original question, like much of my time early on in life was in my from my early teens, like 15 up until 20, when my dad was still alive, was running around all over the U.S. selling boxing equipment and like doing school, but really like trying to run the business full time.
Yeah. I mean, that probably that memory is never going to go from you, is it? Really, as well. I think doing that part of it. Just like I did sports, at an early age, that's not going to go. And for my firefighting career, which is my main profession, throughout my life,
Yeah, absolutely.
So even though I try and do other things, it still stays with you, really. So how did you move on in life then from that, and how did you deal with the grief?
Yeah, so I mean, just to like backtrack a little bit. So when I was 20 years old, I'm trying to decide where I want to really start the story, but I'll even take it back one more time. So
yeah, sure,
when I was in my freshman year of college, I like pretty much immediately I decided to go to this school, a small school in Boston called Bentley, and
it's quite far from Long Island.
Yeah, it's a little bit far away.
Connecticut, yeah,
not too bad. About like 4 hours.
4 hours, that's all right. That's a normal car drive in America.
Yeah, exactly.
Car ride, yeah.
And when I went there, pretty much like the first day, I knew that I did not really want to go there, and I called my mom and I was like, I need to get out of here. I don't know why I decided to choose to go to this school. Let me figure this out. Applied to a bunch of schools. I didn't get into any of the new schools that I applied to, and I remember this was towards the end of my freshman year. I called my mom crying, and I'm like, I'm gonna be stuck at this school for the next 4 years, and I don't want to be here. Life's so unfair. And my mom made me she stopped me and she said, life's not. This isn't a hardship. This is like a bump in a road, but this isn't a life hardship. And at the time, we had a family friend who was sick with cancer, who's totally okay today, fortunately. Yeah. But she said that's a hardship, and she almost like stopped me in my moment of complaining about this. My perspective at the time was that not being able to leave the school was the worst thing that ever happened in my life. And she really stopped me and made me realize that like, this is just a little bump, and like I'm still so lucky to be going to this school and all these things. So that was really like my perspective, my freshman year of college, and just to sort of give you the lay of the land of what my life was like at that point. And like the worst thing in my life was not being able to go to the dream college that I wanted to go to.
All right, I see. Yeah,
2 years later, I finally, and so 2 years later, I finally, so my freshman year, I get denied from all these schools. I get stuck there. I work very hard my following year, and going into my junior year, I was able to switch schools, and I started going to Syracuse, and then I transfer there going into my junior year, and Thanksgiving, I get a phone call, and it's my dad telling me that he was diagnosed with cancer. And now like at that time, really, I wasn't sure. I would say like my reference point for cancer was really, like, I did not have the knowledge or the life experience to know, like, to even understand that my dad was terminally ill. My dad never told me that he had like bad cancer. He just told me, that it's not good, and they're gonna try to get him on some chemo, and they'll see if it works, and all these things like that. And really, in my head at that time, I really never thought that my dad was gonna die. Like, I really thought that he was gonna. I almost thought that, like, the cancer was almost like a cold or a bad flu, and like, oh well, they have treatment, they have things like chemotherapy and things like that, so he'll be okay, he'll live. And I was away at school, but I would come home quite a bit. But then I was in upstate New York, so now I was like a 7-hour drive, so I would go home for the holidays, things like that. And this was like November when he was diagnosed, and every time I'd come home, he was progressively worse. First, like, using a walker to walk around. Eventually, he would be using, it would be difficult for him to go from his bed to the bathroom, or his bed to the stairs. Then we put, like, one of those electric chair things to get him from the upstairs to the downstairs. And every time I'd come home, he was so, like, he just kept getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. And, but again, like, I never really thought that he was going to die. As, like, silly as it sounds, I didn't even realize that it was, like, in the cards almost. And I think a lot of times, like, growing up, you look at, obviously everyone's situation is different, but I think a lot of people look at their parents as, like, these superheroes, right? Nothing can happen to them. And that was definitely at least my perspective. And then in June, it was just over like a weekend. I was still in the boxing business, and I was going to Boston to go to a few gyms. And my dad was in the hospital because at the time he had like a lot of hip pain, and he went in to see if they could do anything to help. And I told my dad, I'm going away for the weekend. This is like Friday. And I said, should I stay or should I go? Because he was in the hospital. And he's like, go, everything will still be the same when you get back. Don't worry about it. So I gave him a kiss goodbye, drove up to Boston. This is like Friday. Saturday, I'm in Boston. They were giving some radiation to his hip to like try to ease some of the pain and to try to get him to be able to walk more easily. And Saturday night I'm in Boston, and I wake up Sunday, and my mom called me, and she's like, you got to come to the hospital, wake up, pack your bags, and get here, basically. And when I got there, my dad was already, they like upped his pain meds, and he was in like a lucid, I would say, sleep almost, and he passed away that night. And that I would say was like the beginning of, I mean, everything stopped. You know, my entire world stopped, and it's almost trying to think of the right words, but now looking back, it's like it really, at that time, like, I really couldn't even comprehend the loss, that my dad just died, that he was going to be gone forever. It was almost too much to comprehend in that moment.
Yeah.
And that was sort of like my beginning experience with loss. And from that point forward, I always say, like, there's you kind of, I think when you live through something traumatic or something significant, like loss, I think there's like life before loss and life after loss. And at that point, it was very much life after loss. And I went home that night, like, with my family, and we started to grieve the loss. And what would come next is like our life after.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean that's mainly where your story of grief is mainly from that and the loss. So how did that shape your perspective of living the life worth living after that?
Yeah, so it's funny, I guess, because after my dad died, I would say it was very, very difficult for me to feel and connect like to my emotions, and a lot of my grief took the shape of like physical anxiety, where I would wake up and be nervous that I was all of a sudden terminally ill. I had a tremendous amount of fear around death, and it took a significant amount of time really to work through that anxiety, and work through the pain associated with the loss, to even just be able to like feel the pain. I would say immediately after, I was personally just very numb to it all, and it was an extremely challenging year. And I got introduced through some connections to an organization called Experience Camps, which is a free 1-week camp for kids that have lost a loved one. And the following summer, so almost a year later, I went and volunteered at this organization as a counselor. And I was absolutely like amazed with this organization. When I went, it was still a fairly new organization, and I get to the camp and there's all these kids there running around, and the camp's only 5 days long, and everyone there, all the kids have lived through some significant loss. And I would say like going there really was the thing that changed my perspective around loss, pain. And it was like in the moments of seeing these kids who were, half my age, or more than half my age, that they were, 10 years old, all the way up 9 or 10 years old to 16 years old, and seeing them talk about their own loss, and realizing that I wasn't alone, and realizing that loss impacts so many people. It was in those moments that I realized that, that a lot of people live through significant loss. And I remember afterwards, what was the eye-opening experience for me in that was, I called my mom at the end of the week and I told her, we're so lucky. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, there's all these kids here who are so much younger than me, who didn't have the upbringing that I had, who didn't have 20 years with an amazing dad, who were robbed of that time. And that I'd say is what was the first time that like I really had a positive experience in the wake of my loss, and how the loss I'd lived through, how this organization kind of shaped, seeing so many other kids who have lived through significant loss, how it shaped me to have this view of, wow, like I can only feel lucky to have experienced what I had experienced. Now everything changed, so fast forward 5 years almost, and fast forward like 5 years, I would say over those 5 years, like my family really was rebuilt into what felt like a new normal, where the holidays no longer felt so quiet, or it didn't really feel like, is my dad gonna walk through the door or something like that. A lot changed over the next 5 years, where although there was still a tremendous amount of pain with the loss of my dad, it felt as if we were finally back on our feet, and as a family, where things just didn't feel like so raw and so painful anymore. And I still am involved in Experience Camps, and I was away volunteering in August, and when I came home, I got home like pretty late at night, and the next day I woke up before my mom woke up, and I was like surprised why she was still sleeping and why I was awake, and it was like 10 a.m. and she came downstairs, and just my uncle was there, because I didn't know this at the time, but my mom had been diagnosed with cancer while I was away. So when I got home, she had sat me down on the couch and told me that I am I was diagnosed with cancer, but she had promised me that it was a positive outlook and that it was different from my dad's cancer and that hers had a better outlook. And it's funny now just talking with you, but she kept referring to like her nails, and she was saying, my nails, they're so strong. That means I'm healthy. And I just started bawling on her lap on the couch. And I would say almost immediately, I just knew that there were no guarantees, and that I had, for whatever reason, call it gut intuition, or really just like prior experience, I knew that this story didn't have a happy ending. And looking backwards, like from when my mom was diagnosed versus when my dad was diagnosed, when my dad was diagnosed, I was absolutely clueless as it relates to like I said, I didn't even have a clue that death was in the cards. When my mom was diagnosed, I really approached it from a whole different perspective of you can pray, you can be hopeful, and you should, but at the end of the day, the cards are what the cards are. And I personally, I felt very much that like the story didn't have a happy ending. And with my mom, it was also very different. The only way that I would like liken it to is just, it was like torment. It was complete hell. My mom, she got diagnosed in late August, checked into the hospital, and she didn't leave until she passed away. So she was in the hospital for 2.5 months with an extremely rare, aggressive cancer. And so it was a very different experience from when my dad was diagnosed versus my mom.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. So it's two very, but yeah. That's quite a thing really there. So how did he move on from there? I mean, obviously, you had a positive kind of mindset from that camp you went to with the kids, and obviously, life does throw things at you. We're not here forever, obviously, so when we're 80 years old, you're going to hear more of people closer to you that, but obviously yours happened when you was younger, obviously. I've had the same thing myself, but how did you move on from there? I mean, obviously, what inspired you to lead on to what you now have as a podcast to deal with adversity?
Yeah, so I would say that when I lost my dad, it was more just like dealing with this experience of loss for the first time. And when I lost my mom, it was like a completely different experience where, of course, she's no longer here, but I would say that the experience of losing my mom really shaped my perspective on the world, where almost I left the experience in a bizarre way empowered, where I really understood the idea of how fragile our life is and how precious our life is, and that each day really is a gift and not a guarantee. And it was in the moments of like watching my mom die that made me realize, and this is a little thing that like I would tell myself all the time when she was sick, but there's really nothing in life that we can control. The only thing that we can control is how and where we spend our time. Everything else is really out of our control. And it's made me take this take on life, which is, how do I want to spend, knowing that I too am going to die one day, how do I want to spend my limited time on this earth? And I've really started to, after my mom had passed, I really started to refocus my own life to put the emphasis around building a life I love. A term that one of my friends refers to all the time, becoming time wealthy. So putting my energy into time wealth, where I'm able to control how and where I spend my time, and optimizing for the things that I want to optimize for. I'd say that today, like, I live my life with a great deal of intentionality, knowing, just really waking up every day knowing that, like, life is precious. I would say, you know, like, I say yes way more than I say no because, you know, like, you just never know. So, you know, if a friend's visiting, or your friends want to go on a vacation, or your wife wants to go on a vacation, you know, I think I try to really, in many ways, just like live my life knowing just how fragile it is. And that led me to launching a podcast, my podcast, Bits of Gold, where similarly to your show, I share stories of resilience and share stories of people who are building their dream life to help inspire others to know that, you know, they too can move forward in the face of adversity and ultimately go on to build a life they love. And I really believe, you know, going back to what I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, you know, when I was 14 years old, I had this unique opportunity to go out and build something that mattered to me, build something that I really enjoyed. And still like to this day, it's without a doubt the most important thing to me. You know, I really believe that everyone has the opportunity when they wake up to go out and build their dream life, whether it be a business, a job they love, a family they love, whatever it is they want to do. Like, that is what I think we're all supposed to do while we're here. Just knowing, you know, that, like, we're not here forever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And no, it's really, really great what you're doing with the podcast, and I also get some, you know, good reviews on mine as well. So I want to keep doing what I'm doing and keep sharing, you know, peace and positivity around the world with mine. I'm sure you want to do the same with yours. So how can people find your podcast? It's on the Apple. I've seen it on Apple.
Yeah, so the show's called Bits of Gold. You can go to our website, www.bitsofgold.co. And yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Great, it's
Everything's
fantastic.
on there.
Well, what do you do with yourself in generally in life now? You still working as well as this podcast, or are you?
Yeah, so I'm building the podcast, and I'm also involved in a company where we help companies manufacture products overseas.
Okay. Which is your speciality anyway. So.
Yeah, I haven't left the overseas manufacturing since I'm a little kid.
Yeah. Well, Danny, it's been really great, and thanks for really sharing your story. I mean, it's really difficult for some people to do as well, so that's been, you know, really, really great that you could come here and share how people can overcome.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
Exactly the same as what I'm doing as well. So, you know, I feel at home talking to you about this. So thanks a lot for coming on the show and sharing your story today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. Or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.